Jacob Van Lunen, writer for MagicTheGathering.com. I'm here in North Arlington, New Jersey, at Reality's Edge. This is my favorite place to game. I come here every Thursday night to draft for a Primeval Titan. If you live in the area, I'd be sure to check it out. Today, I'm going to discuss a new standard deck I found. It uses Nixilis, where you normally find Baneslayer Angel. I hope you find this helpful.
So here's the Fauna Junk deck that I was telling you about. It was designed by L1X0, Magic Online player. It recently won a premiere event on Magic Online. It won on Monday, September 13th. And this deck is really interesting. One of the things that got me most excited about this deck was the inclusion of NixilistheFallen. Now, if you've never seen this guy in action, you really don't want to see him in action on the other side of the table. Obviously, one of the most powerful cards you could open in Limited in that format, but in Constructed, he's already had his heyday. Pro Tour San Juan showed a deck that used Nixilis to a great power. It used to just deal, 20 points of drain with a single turn, 21 points to be exact. But the deck was played by Kibler, it was played by a few other people. The card's always been really powerful. When I was at the Grand Prix in Washington, D.C., I was talking outside with Tomohiro Saito, and I asked him what he thought one of the most underrated cards in the set was. And he told me NixilistheFallen was the best card in the block format. Now, I don't know if he was perhaps leading me to believe that the Japanese were playing a certain deck, if he was hooking me, but it definitely made me look at the card in a much different light. And seeing its main deck inclusion over the inclusion of Baneslayer Angel is a really exciting thing to me, because that's very rare to see. A lot of people might ask why. Why Nixilis over Baneslayer? Now, the thing is that Standard has kind of degenerated into this format where people are trying to do really stupid things. They're playing these, and I don't mean stupid in the sense of, not intelligent. I mean stupid in the sense of, summoning trapping into an Emrakul, or, casting Primeval Titans and getting Eldrazi Temples so they can hardcast Emrakul. People are just trying to put together these gigantic plays, and that's generally what Standard has become. But Nixilis isn't a card where you're trying to beat somebody on a board, necessarily. Nixilis just kills people. And against decks like Pyromancer's Ascension, decks like Valakut, decks like, Mono Green Ramp, Nixilis is really just the best threat you could possibly have. Lately, in Standard, we've been seeing a lot of tournaments won by these Green Ramp decks, won by Pyromancer's Ascension decks like that. And Nixilis is just a perfect card to beat them. It fits that slot in the curve perfectly, takes the place of your Baneslayer Angel, and it just kills people. It kills people so much faster than Baneslayer Angel could ever dream of killing people. And to be honest, it just kills people faster than any card could really ever dream of killing people. It actually combos pretty nicely with the Knight of the Reliquary. If you have an active Knight of the Reliquary in play, when you cast Nixilis, he's a Laquatus champion, only he's a 9/9, and they don't get the life back if they kill it. And every land you play after that, you're draining them for another 3, and he's getting even bigger. And the next turn, you can just activate that same Knight of the Reliquary, go get a Sajiri Step, and your opponent's dead. Nixilis will actually kill them. All by himself. You don't even need another card. You have other cards that work really well with him. Elspeth, to give him flying. Again, an evasive Nixilis. I don't care how much life was gained by that stupid Ajani's Pridemate deck. And Nixilis is going to put a chunk in that total. I doubt their Sarah's Ascendants will be 6/6s when you're attacking them for 15 in the air after you've trained them for 12. So, it seems like it's a pretty good card right now. Some other inclusions that seem interesting are Sun Titan. That's a card you haven't really seen in many aggressive decks. Sun Titan is actually surprisingly good against Jund decks that are having a revival right now. And Jund, it's obviously going to exist. It's so powerful. But Knight of the Reliquary has always been one of those cards that the Jund player really just has to kill it the turn it comes into play, or it just gets so powerful and gains so much value that the Jund player can't ever really attack into it, and their removal becomes dead because you have Sajiri Step. So they end up playing this really weird game where they're trying to save terminates for end of turn Knight activations, and they're not even tapping out on their own turn. And when Jund starts trying to do stuff like that, any sort of deck that has its own power level and its own curve can really just stomp them. So that's a really nice inclusion there. Against Naya decks, you have Linvala, Keeper of Silence. And what's really interesting to note about this card is it also turns off mana abilities. So if your opponent has like 8 mana guys in their deck, or if they have like a bird and a hierarch in play along with like 3 lands, if you are about to activate your end of turn Fauna Shaman, Linvala is almost always the perfect card to get there. The fact that it turns off Spark Mage Basilisk Collar is also huge. So whereas like normally decks like that could really like put a hurt on you, you'd have to waste like a Maelstrom Pulse and the shitty 1/1 equipment that they used a Stoneforge Mystic to go get. Now you have this one card that presents a flying threat that they really have very few things that can attack through it, and like they're only on Vengevine at that point, and Linvala just turns off like all the different types of fun things that deck tries to put together. So the deck also has a really good removal package. Maelstrom Pulse is really good right now because you have the Ajani's Primate decks running around with such like consistency. So those decks will almost always have multiple permanents on the table with the same name. So Maelstrom Pulse lets you 2-for-1 them quite easily. Path Exile, obviously, just like the instant speed removal is really powerful. This is one of those types of decks where you're going to want to be pathing your own guys surprisingly often. Sometimes you do it with Omnixilis, like let's say you attack with a 6/6 Omnixilis and your opponent's at 12. You can just, like when they say no blocks, you can Path Exile one of your own other guys and drain them for another 3 life with Omnixilis and make them into a 9/9 and your opponent's dead. You can also just use Path to ramp your own mana. Sometimes you want to be do that so you can cast the Sun Titan the next turn and return a Knight of the Reliquary. It's just really nice. It's also nice to be able to cast Tidehollow Sculler and with his trigger on the stack, use a Path Exile on him. It'll permanently castigate their card and give you a Rampant Growth, which is a pretty interesting thing. The thing is the Tidehollow Sculler's triggered ability from when it leaves play, the return the exiled card to its owner's hand, will resolve before the first ability resolves. So your opponent will reveal their hand and you'll exile the card and they'll never get it back. So that's an interesting play you can make there with the Path to Exile. So I'd like to talk about a few more of the intricacies of this deck. Now it's obviously playing Lotus Cobra. It plays 8 fetch lands. It's really maximizing the value of Knight of the Reliquary and Lotus Cobra here. It actually has a 9th fetch land in the form of Terramorphic Expanse. So basically it ensures that if you're landing your Omnixilis, it's going to be doing a shit ton of damage. Or a butt ton of damage. Fauna Shaman is really nice inclusion here. Like lately we've been seeing Fauna Shaman in decks that are trying to assemble a Cunning Spark Mage package with Stoneforge Mystic and Basilisk Collar, or decks that are packed full of Vengevines so they can, reliably be discarding Vengevines and getting things like Ranger to bring the Vengevines back. But this deck uses Fauna Shaman because it's a survival. You can just go get an awesome creature. And you can go get the perfect creature card for the moment. Against those Naya decks, you can just go and get a Linvala, Keeper of Silence. Against the Jund decks, you can just go and get your Sun Titan. When you're just going to kill them, you can just go get an NixilistheFallen. When you want a Vengevine because you're playing against blue-white, you can just go get a Vengevine. Sometimes you can go get a Vengevine simply to discard a Vengevine of the Fauna Shaman the next turn and get the second of your 2 creatures so that you can, let's say you have a bird in your hand already, you can end of turn get a Vengevine, on your turn pitch the Vengevine, go get a Tidehollow Sculler, play bird and Tidehollow Sculler, you bring the Vengevine back, and you've taken out their path or, whatever spell they had to deal with the Vengevine with the Sculler. So that's a really powerful interaction right there.